2 of Energetic Aspects of Narcissist and Empath Trauma. Today's focus is the healing approach, and to welcome everybody. My name is Jona Bryndis. You know this all. The microphones are open for you. You don't have to ask for permission. You can text me as well. The objective of the workshops is this workshop is, like always, to increase our awareness and to become more active. The timeline is just a quick overview how far we've gotten last time. Getting better at spotting the trauma, the fact that we are actually having a trauma, and whether or not this is, with a narcissist or just something who has narcissistic thinking. Okay, so I want to go a little bit into this today because there's a lot of misconception about narcissism. And of course, what the antidote is, what your antidote can be, and practical tips and strategies. That's the big one for me here, that you learn how to deal with this better, how to be more equipped. All right. I want to get started to give you guys a podium here and let you ask questions. Also, perhaps maybe share examples for others to even understand sort of why this is such a big topic here amongst this empath community. And I want to pick up on a very good question that was asked here ahead of time before the workshop. As you know, when you get the invitations with the access link, you also get the opportunity to ask a question ahead of time if you want that to be covered. And that is, once a narcissist, always a narcissist. Does an empath once an empath, always an empath? That's a really, really good question that I would like to address here a little bit in the course of this webinar. I just want you to know that I see your questions there, so you can always send them in ahead of time, especially if you can't come to the live recording. Then that's a good way for you to make sure that your question is covered. Is there anyone who would like to give us a little bit of examples or have live questions here in regards to what it's like to experience trauma or this whole problem, why this is such a big problem? I'd love to hear.
Hello, everyone.
Hi there.
Hi, it's Gosha.
Hey, Gosha.
I have an example from yesterday, actually, as I was intentionally, thinking about this webinar today. And, my father was, I think he had narcissistic traits.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really tell, if he was like full-on narcissist, but he was also an addict. Mm-hmm. So yesterday I've noticed, it's like under magnifying glass, mm-hmm. because my need came forward, and it was basic need just to take a nap, simple. But I've noticed how my father used to always say no and criticize whatever was asked for, and I see how this is my inner dialogue within myself right now, and I immediately went to the critical inner voice. Mm-hmm. Immediately took over, and I immediately also started to perform things, because I wanted to take a nap just to rest, maybe 15-20 minutes. And then I'm like, oh my God, why are you gonna nap right now? You have to do something else. And I immediately went to performing, doing things.
And so to prove to yourself that you deserve a nap or something like that?
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Do something else first, and then I deserve a nap. But underneath all that, it was more than that, because I felt like suddenly I did not feel safe. I didn't know where it's coming from because there's so many changes currently right now, within and everywhere. And I like my root chakra was affected, and that fear was like dissipating. And if I didn't do all that energy work, I would feel completely lost, or I would feel like I'm totally insane because I wanted to like hide in a closet and like be alone and safe. And meanwhile, I knew what I'm trying to communicate is this connecting with my heart, because that's when you are safe, not only within, but interacting with the whole world around you. But I felt like I want to hide in a closet so nobody sees me. So maybe I hide and nobody will criticize me. But it was like totally, not relevant to nobody was here.
I know. So you just wanted a nap, right? Oh God, this is such a good example, Gosha. I thank you so much because this is like a typical sign that there's unresolved trauma in you. Why is that? Because and you are able to pinpoint, the things that are underneath, right? There's stuff with your childhood, there's stuff with your father, there's stuff with coping, right? How you normally deal with those kind of things. There's stuff with triggers, there's all kinds of things, and they all of a sudden come up where it's a simple need
Yes.
that wants to be expressed. A simple need, something just for you, just for you. Nobody, it's not even anybody else involved in this. It doesn't take anything away from anybody, right? I mean, it's not like you have to weigh out if it's, something that would do harm or something like that.
Yeah.
And yet you have this whole story, this whole tape playing in the background. And it's really cool that you have already identified how this is linked in with your critical inner voice, and how the critical inner voice then leads back to some of your childhood stuff, right? Like what your father always used to say, how it's linked in with some of the anxiety that you feel in on occasion, how it's linked in with doubting your own reality, doubting, yourself, doubting your own needs,
Mm-hmm.
also pushing your own needs away. This choice, right? Like why we make this choice, and how it's linked to this performance issue that has come up here quite a bit in these last weeks in the sacred self-healing community. Performing as in perfectionism, or having to put on an act, or having to prove that we're worthy, something along those lines. And it's wonderful how you could relate all this to narcissism, and your question is heard, whether your father now qualifies as a full-blown narcissist, whatever kind, malignant narcissist, grandiose narcissist, coverted narcissist, social narcissist, or somebody who could be diagnosed with a narcissistic personality disorder, is completely irrelevant. This isn't the point. And that's why I really want to cover this a bit, because this misconception that I mentioned earlier, and also the question that was asked ahead of time, like, is that label narcissist, is that something that is helpful or not? Is it something that makes us see the world sort of divided in perpetrators and victims only? And is only our perception that we are the victims because the others are the narcissists? Is that actually even true? It brings up all these questions. And to sort this a little bit, I want to just say that whether somebody qualifies as a full-blown narcissist, someone with narcissistic personality disorder or not, is not important. What we need to understand, and this is an adequate subject here amongst this sacred self-healing community, is that the nature of ego in itself is narcissistic. We all have narcissistic traits in us. And those are the same as the ones that we are dealing with here, namely our ego patterns. Okay, every ego pattern that we have is narcissistic in its root. We have to understand that. Now, just as much as we differentiate the different classes of narcissism, we can also differentiate the different classes of egotism, right? I mean, there's different kinds of ego patterns. There's judgment and hypercriticism, there's control, there's anger, there's fear, there's pain, victimhood, guilt, and shame. Yeah, those are all, emotions that are part of our being here as humans. But the patterns that we develop coping with those, not facing them actually, but coping with them, like sort of wiggling our way out, finding different ways, you know, according to the paradigm of ego, which is, do you guys remember the two directives, the two prime directives of the ego? The paradigm of the ego consists of two directives. The first one is avoiding pain, and the second one is seeking pleasure. And the stronger the addiction to that, as in, like, the more we make ourselves depend on it and the more we externalize our power to it, okay, the more narcissistic we will appear in our behaviors. That's kind of like the connection here. Okay, so that's why we sometimes have these difficulties deciding whether a person that we're with could qualify as a narcissist or not. Or, as we have, I'm sure, of it all asked ourselves whether we're the narcissists or not. Okay. The reason why I say it's irrelevant is because we will find narcissistic traits in ourselves, but those are all linked to our ego patterns. Okay, so it's actually more accurate to talk about egotistical or egoic patterns than narcissistic patterns. The reason why the word narcissist is such a trendy word right now is because we're seeing a dramatic increase in the more extreme versions of that now. Why is that? Partially because our societies have moved into a more shallow, more rewarding place for narcissism. Part of that is social media and internet altogether, because it creates a worldwide audience for narcissism that wasn't there before. It was a lot harder to get attention from, people somewhere else in the world. In just 20, 30 years ago, you had to write a book. That's a lot of effort. That's not normally what narcissists like doing. They like maximum attention for minimum input. And so we're seeing, sort of a polarization of that. We're seeing just more extreme versions of that now. And at the same time, we're also seeing an increase in people who are empathetic. Okay, so we're having both at the same time. And so it brings up a whole new sociological problem, namely this fatal attraction between narcissists and empaths. And somehow every empath seems to have a narcissist in their life. Okay, this is very, very interesting. And sometimes it makes me wonder if us having become an empath has to do with that. Okay, so that's when I always say it's hard to say what was there first, the chicken or the egg. Okay, have we become the empath that is really good at energy reading and feeling other people's feelings out of necessity because we were surrounded by someone who made their own needs priority, who doubted or actively manipulated our version of reality so that their needs could be met instead of our own, is hard to answer. But I do want to come back to something where we left off last time, and that was that the reminder that narcissism or narcissistic behavior is on the exact same level as energetic sensitivity. Narcissists are also energetically sensitive. They just don't have any empathy. Because if they did, they wouldn't do what they're doing. Okay? So the main, and this is an answer that you will always come back to, thing to keep in mind is that when it comes to like victim and perpetrator type of thinking, right? Who is the bad guy and who's the good guy here? All right, I want to remind everybody that as an empath, all the problems that have arisen in our lives, such as the performing, such as the critical inner voice, is linked to our own egoic patterns. Those are all things that we've developed, as a way to cope with our sort of narcissistic counterpart. So for us to go into empathy and to be able to anticipate the egotistical person's slash narcissistic person's needs and trying to perform in a certain way is manipulation as well. That's where we left off last time. And so I want to give you guys, or you, Gosha, here just basically one thing to work with. And that is that whatever whatever caused this kind of tape to form, okay, the fact that you can see that this is somehow linked to your childhood, to your father, is enough for you to heal this. It's enough for you to recognize sort of where the damage was done, where the trauma occurred. The trauma occurred exactly at that spot where it got triggered. Do you know what that is? Your
Not
need.
my need,
Your
yes.
need. As simple as that. So whether your dad was whatever he was, it's irrelevant. Those are just labels. The trauma is that somehow, through some things, you growing up, your needs weren't met, they weren't a priority. In fact, it went so far that whenever you expressed your needs, they were answered with something that scared you, that made you feel unsafe, that affected your first chakra, that made you question yourself, that made you question your sanity, that put you in a state of anxiety, and that made you perform, that made you disconnect from who you truly are, what you truly need, what you truly want, and to put on an act. That's the trauma. And so, how can we um, heal that? It's basically the essence of this whole workshop here. But by me pointing out these parts that got traumatized, you already get the gist, right? We got to reclaim those things, each of these parts. We got to reclaim our sanity. What is our sanity? That's our sense for reality. We got to reclaim our connection with our own needs, with our own truth, with our own feelings. We've got to claim to be a true self, to be here, to have the right to be here. We have to reconnect with that. We have to combat our critical inner voice, because that's the one that is like the mouthpiece of this childhood trauma, right? That's the tape. That's the recording that keeps playing, that keeps triggering that. And we have to learn how to work with our physiological reaction to it, which is the anxiety. And I love how you pointed out that if you hadn't done so much energy work with yourself, you probably didn't know how to handle this, or you would have end up in a really stressed out state.
Yes, I took an.
Because you did take a nap, good girl. So yes, if all else fails, I mean, that is just a personal tip. From me, that's an attitude thing. If all else fails and all this analyzing and all this like breaking it down into its different components, a good fuck you helps too. Forgive me my language, but I'm just telling you guys that you don't have to go through this analysis each time. You just got to remember, that you live here your life, okay, and you're a grown-up person, okay. We're all grown-ups here, and we all have a free will, and we all have the right to choose what we're doing, and we can all call shots. Yes, we all have to take responsibility for it. Yes, we have to live up to the consequences, and yes, sometimes we have to break through resistances. Oh well. Okay, so it's not like the end of the world if we go with this. The trick is to go into that place where we just simply acknowledge what the need is. We can't always resolve it in an optimal way, say, but we can acknowledge it. So, Gosha, for you, it's really about acknowledging that you're tired, okay? And then what helps me personally is to really go into this educated place about what sleep deprivation does to a person, and then I convince myself that if I just take a mini nap, half an hour, 20 minutes, everything will be easier. And in that way, I can be more efficient or more effective when things are a little easier. So, the acknowledging our needs, that does a bunch of things at the same time. But you're absolutely correct as far as your first chakra is concerned, your root chakra. That is the part that was traumatized. Our beingness, really, our most fundamental right to be here and sense of self. And that's why self-healing work is so effective by with trauma healing, because there's only so much we can do with our intellect, with our knowledge. It does help. Education helps, but it's not the part that can actually get out of these places. What can get us out of these places is what they call in psychology reparenting, where we literally have to give ourselves at that very moment what we didn't get back then when the tape was created. So we have to create a new tape. Does everybody understand it? It's like we have to literally reprogram ourselves. And the way we do this, we're going to talk a little more about this here. But the way we do this in the first moment of realizing what is going on is that we acknowledge our need, or that we acknowledge that we're here, that we acknowledge that we have a free will. Okay? This acknowledging.
Jonah,
Yes.
I like to time in with this. I mean, what amazes me recently. Hi, this is
Mm-hmm.
Denise, by the way. It's all good.
Hi, Denise.
It's just like stepping back and with the education that we, coming to these webinars and learning what, boundary work and narcissist work
Mm-hmm.
and trauma healing. What amazes me, it's like stepping back and just looking at the whole picture. It's like the whole repeats,
Mm-hmm.
I can speak for myself of being so drawn to attracting that narcissist, like coming from childhood, but those narcissist traits with people or uh, whatever the concept, but then to step back and now realize all the residual left over, from all
Mm-hmm.
those experiences. And it's taken me a year or over a year to kind of like accept, like kind of like come to a place where I'm like, I was still even a month ago questioning, like, feeling like it was my fault. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like it was me, like it was, I must be flawed, like after coming out of a place where I was like so depleted, where like I had to stop the tape because I couldn't repeat another narcissist or like, you know, codependent relationship again, you know, like me as a codependent and with obviously narcissist traits, you know, it goes back and forth. um so I just wanted to time in with what you were talking. It's just I'm glad to be here and learning about this because it's helping me face it and
Thank
let
you.
go. Let go, yeah.
And I love what you said. You know, it's really about, it's also a continual thing. So hearing this once isn't really enough. You know, it's like it has to, we have to look at it from all different perspectives over and over
Yes.
again. And if you think about it, we have been working on this here as a community for the last 3 months. Trauma healing, sexual trauma, purpose of pain, um yeah, the whole narcissistic thing. What else? Boundary work. I mean, everything was around the same subject, and that was acknowledging that there's something here that happened to us, or maybe with us, but mostly to us, okay, that isn't our fault, but it's replaying, and it keeps attracting the same experiences back into our lives. And to get to that place where you get so tired of it, right? I mean, in the sense of like, I can't do this anymore, or in the sense of like, same old, and getting bored of it, all right? It requires to really face it. You know, it's not enough to just know these things. We have to face it. And this is why I love it when you guys share these things, because this gives us the opportunity, you know, to relate to things. And oftentimes we have to relate to it through other people's eyes first, because they say it in a different way than we think it. And that augments, it increases the way we make connections. So like Gosha, your sharing was really good in that way, because you brought so many different aspects together already. Yes, and everybody's chiming in here. How helpful that is. Thank you, guys.
Thank
And,
you.
Thank you, thank you.
a lot of people here are relating, especially to the hiding part that you mentioned, Gosha. You know, this like not knowing what to do, not knowing what to trust, doubting yourself, and then, as a sort of a response, to just go hide. I mean, it's completely inefficient if you think about it, right? Because all you really wanted was a nap, know. But with all this drama now that is playing, these recordings, these tapes that are going on, and the resistance, and the emotions, the anxiety, and all that, we end up. It's a total self defeat, right? That's the problem with this. This is what has been done to us, puts us into a place of, I don't even want to call it self sabotage. I want to call it self defeat. It's like literally we're taking ourselves out. Okay. And that's trauma, guys. That's not normal. That's not life supporting. That's not nature. you
And
know?
and especially right now, there's more needs that are coming forward, the true needs. And this one was very easy one to acknowledge, but some of them go unnoticed or totally neglected. And
Mhm. Yeah, that comes then in the course of us reminding ourselves of these tapes, acknowledging our needs more, connecting more within. You begin to become better at spotting them within yourself. Like when you neglect your own needs, this is a natural process. The moment you basically send out the message to your true self that you want to be more true to yourself, and that you want to be more in touch with all this, is also the moment where you get where you receive those signals more clearly. And this is also where the transmissions and all this come in, where you practice that, and you build a new muscle memory, you build a new pathway of even feeling that, you build new reference feelings, very, very important. And then your system starts to go there by itself. So this is really the way to approach this. It takes a lot of patience, yes, I understand, but it's this reprogramming that I mentioned earlier has to happen over time. You up against something that was conditioned into you. Nobody's really tackled that yet, neither in psychology nor in medicine. How to re-record that, how to change that conditioned recording, tape in you. Energy work can give us the opportunity to do this in a safe space without re-traumatizing ourselves. So this is a whole new sort of application that is opening up through what you guys are going through here, what you guys are learning right now. Yes, and I'll open up more microphones here as people have logged on a little later. Just a second, I want to give other commenters here a little space and read their comments. Somebody's asking, can performance help to pull us out of the slow place, though, like as a distraction, perhaps? Yes, what I hear you asking underneath that is if a certain amount of self-control and routine, can help us out of it. I want to say no, only because I've tried that. And it seems like, and this is where our critical inner voice really works against us. It seems like this place that Gosha described, right? Well, if I just do this first and that and that and that, so I can feel better about myself, and then I deserve to take a nap, right? It seems like it drives us forward, but it really doesn't reinforce this a deeper connection with ourselves. It just reinforces the old recording. So while it appears that way, because our critical inner voice shuts down, it like gets quieter if we, feel like through performing, we are at least doing something useful, right? We at least, at least I've got a lot of stuff done today, right? But I've neglected all my needs, So it pleases the critical inner voice and makes that torment a little less, but it does not actually help. It does not change the recording, because all we're reinforcing with that is that we should not heed our needs, or we should not really acknowledge our true feelings, and we have to perform in a certain way. So every have to, must, gotta place within ourselves is a very tricky thing, because it's not based on truth.
Hi, it's Cheryl.
Hey, Cheryl.
I'm looking at this a little deeper today, which is cool, because you guys are talking a bunch of like really vivid videos are parking themselves in front, and what's popping up is the fact that the dynamics of this family that I came in on were already well established before I arrived there, which really plays into my specialness, right? Because the victim in me wants to think it was all about me and I was the cause of the chaos. But when I think about it, the script was already landed, be it before me or after me or at the same time as me. And that puts it in a really different light, because I've spent a lot of energy and time trying to figure this out, because that's how my head works. So I'm trying to figure out, okay,
that's how your ego works. Yeah,
right. I'm so special. So this is a big picture. So please give me some room while I'm unfolding it, because this is a new one. So as I land into this family where the dynamics 7 generations before and 7 generations after me are all laid out, and I'm a little ego, right? A small child ego trying to make sense of it, but I'm not. I'm doing that right now at 57 going, huh? But it's way bigger than me, and it never occurred to me until this very moment that my specialness wants to make sense of it, right? That big word why pops in. Why did I choose this? Why are you like this? Why were you like that?
Why does this keep happening to me? Why do I attract this kind of people? Why am I always the only one? Blah, blah, blah. Yep.
Yeah. And so that kind of makes the rest of it moot, because like I said earlier, I have some very vivid video clips that I could tell you what color socks I was wearing when when incident A, B, or C happened that led to the enlightenment of all of this, but all it did was shine a spotlight on something that made it really obvious. But taking I don't even have words because I'm trying to process what I'm just talking about, the light bulb moment, that it was all right there way before I landed on the picture. So I'm not that fucking special is what I'm trying to tell you.
No, but you're also not that's that low or that bad either, you know.
Yeah,
And you're
I'm
not
not
responsible.
either. So, but let's wind that back a little bit. So, given that little piece of enlightenment that just landed, and knowing full well that the spirit wants to take this particular incarnation to learn these particular things, whatever, then oh man, and not a lot of wasted time, but a lot of wasted time because none of it matters.
Nope.
So, but isn't that part of the whole situation to begin with? Because if I'm not the empath, then this is my narcissistic traits coming out, thinking that I'm that fucking special. Boom!
Yep. Congratulations.
Yeah, this is really funny right now. This is holy shit moment. Yeah.
It's really funny. It's cool that it's funny for you because most people around you actually have known this for a long time. You know, they just.
But we've talked in past webinars about, you know, how do you know you're not a narcissist, right? When you're the flip side of it, which is an empath. And I would say, well, okay, no, I'm not a narcissist, like blah blah blah. But I just got a little glimpse that, yeah, maybe I'm a narcissist.
Well,
I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe just the fact that I got smacked in the head was a good one. I don't know.
Well, okay, this has a lot to do with the conditioning that we receive and the what we get exposed to and what was modeled to us. Okay, so this is where family constellation comes in, and this is where karmic stuff comes in. And just to inform you guys, I said this at the end of the last webinar. There's going to be a third and a fourth part of this webinar workshop series. The next one is going to be about narcissistic parenting, where we go a little bit deeper into this particular issue. So if you have been modeled narcissistic behaviors, okay, then even as an empath, you can go there. But for the most part, guys, and this is for everybody now, if you look at the screen, 20 signs of unresolved or stored trauma in you, resorting to narcissistic traits can also be a sign of trauma. And just to bring in the empathy here, every narcissist is a highly traumatized person. Okay? Because what is it actually that we are displaying when we resort to narcissistic behavior? Survival. The only difference is that an empath can have narcissistic behavior, but will always end up in that place of regret, remorse, and cognitive dissonance with it, and beat him or herself up over it because it's not part of the empath's objective to hurt somebody or to take something away from them. For the only reason that, due to the fact that we know exactly what this feels like, and we don't want other people to feel that way. The narcissist, though, does not have that. And that's the hard part sometimes. Recognizing narcissism in friends, loved ones, co-workers, bosses, fathers, mothers, spouses, exes. They just don't have that. And it's very disillusioning because a lot of it wants to look like love or wants to look like they care, but they actually don't. So yes, we can have a narcissistic empath. Okay, that's an empath who is very traumatized and sees narcissism as the only way out to cope. You know, it's a form of retribution. Also has to do with the personality type. So it's typically more the aggressive type, or the extrovert type that tends to, you know, to recreate narcissistic behaviors, egotistical behaviors, even if it's only inward. You know, like this why questioning. Okay, this excessive why questioning, yes, is narcissistic in its nature, but it's really just a coping mechanism. It comes from a place of trauma, Cheryl. You have to understand that. So if you go into judging yourself now for being or displaying narcissism, then you just replaying the tape. Okay, you gotta. That's why it's cool that you think it's funny. It has to be funny, because otherwise you're just gonna doubt your own sanity again. When we detect narcissistic traits in our behavior as empaths, it's nothing that we need to beat ourselves up over. It's just something that we really need to catch, correct, make amends for, and do better next time. Okay? Because we have that intention. And that intention is for the most part true, namely to not do to others what we don't want to be done to us. Okay? But a true narcissist will not have that. Regardless, though, we can, the trauma that we have experienced, that came through narcissistic behaviors of others, whether they're full-blown narcissists or not, who cares? The trauma is there. Okay? That needs to be addressed from that place of empathy for ourselves. Okay? And that's why the emphasis needs to be on our needs, our feelings, which at first sounds almost like narcissistic. Okay? Selfish. But it's not. We are in the active process of re-recording our inner voice. Okay? Of resetting and realigning our own sense of self and sense of reality. And yes, I mean, a lot of people ask me if it's actually safe to have a relationship while you're doing that. Well, if you are in a relationship that is narcissistic, and you see this pattern playing out in front of you, you definitely want to work on an exit strategy. And we'll get to that here in a little bit. There are a few things you can do to not get re-traumatized, but if you are with a full-blown narcissist, I can take this up front. I can anticipate this for you. There is no solution. You have different objectives. Okay. If you are with a person who has narcissistic traits based on their own traumas, there is a good chance of healing yourself, but you're not responsible for the healing of the other person. So they still have to be wanting to do this themselves. If they don't, then you need an exit strategy. Because them going into their narcissistic coping will still re-traumatize you. If you're in a relationship where both are on the same, say, outspoken journey to becoming their own true selves, you can do this together. And that's actually kind of fun. But, it requires you to have a lot of patience, because if you give each other the permission to call yourselves out on these narcissistic coping behaviors, then you're gonna have to have a lot of courage. Okay, so for those of you who, as a result of all these workshops, who have, I don't know, let me see your hands, guys. Like, with all these workshops that we've been doing here and that we've done in the past couple of months, who of you has doubted or considered that their partner that they're currently with is actually a narcissist? Who of you has the suspicion, at least, that they're still with a narcissist? Okay, that's like 20% of us. Okay, who of you came out to the conclusion that you were definitely raised by narcissistic parents? that's 75% of us. Okay, cool. Okay, so whether or not either one, spouse or parents, were full-blown narcissists or not, let's just put this aside here. Let's just say they showed narcissistic traits. And one thing, Gosha, that you said that I did not respond to, but that's very important for you to understand. This trauma that I mentioned that can lead to narcissistic behavior in people, you know, ego survival behavior, can also come with other problems, addictions, mental illness. Who of you guys were raised by parents who, parents or caretakers who either had alcoholism running through their family, or full-on addictions, painkillers, any kind of other addictions, or a diagnosed mental illness, schizophrenia, bipolar, dissociative personality disorder? Okay. Hey, look, guys, that's 80% of 90% of you. Okay. So don't be sort of over quick here to diagnose your parents as narcissists. That's not your problem. They showed narcissistic parenting styles, okay, and most likely due to their own trauma, okay. So addiction and mental illness produces narcissistic behavior, okay. Yes, or codependency, that's the same thing, you know. Codependency develops by, being in a, being traumatized as well. So that's also based on a trauma, and it's very similar. Most empaths are codependents, you know. It's very similar to the sort of kind of opposite end of narcissism, okay? That is the counterpart, and that's why this high rate of codependency amongst empaths is what creates these staggering statistics and this sort of almost stereotypical attraction between narcissists and empaths, okay? Because these are the empaths that are by nature already codependent, be it through their parenting, through what they were exposed to in their parenting, or other traumas that led to self-love deficiency. Self-love deficiency is a different word for codependence. Codependence is typically used in conjunction with addiction. So you have an addict in the family, and then the partner is usually the codependent. What is the line between narcissistic behavior and being a narcissist? Well, we've answered that many times. The big line here is the ability to actually feel what it feels like for the other, and not just think it, to actually know what that feels like, and to feel remorse, to actually feel this inner prompting that it's not okay. That it's not okay. So the big difference, if you want to test if somebody is a narcissist or not, okay, you can really ask a simple question, and that is, how does that make you feel? I always recommend people that I work with going through trauma healing in conjunction with narcissism, to, in their own course of reconnecting with their true self and reconnecting with their own needs and feelings, to communicate how it makes you feel, and ask the other if that's the intention of the other person to make you feel that way. So let me model this here. Be something like what you just said made me really feel afraid, or made me really feel scared. Did you want me to feel that way? Yes, it's not always safe to ask, I know. This is something we're going to go through here. But the bottom line is, it's the empathy, and whether or not it's throwing a fit when you ask that doesn't necessarily mean that they are a person who have narcissistic personality disorder. Sometimes it can also just be their own conditioning. There will be a point where you can feel, as an empath, you can feel if the other person can relate to your feeling or not.
I tested that on my relationship.
Okay, and what was the result?
Like I've learned really how to ask questions, like how do you feel, how that makes you feel, or sometimes when he's communicating something to me and I don't like it, I'm like, how do you think that makes me feel? And I make sure I express how it makes me feel. Like there are some kind of behaviors that I don't like, so I
Mhm.
make sure I communicate that. Like before, I would accept it and maybe like laugh along or made me feel like it's funny. But right
Mhm.
now, I'm like, how do you think that makes me feel? Was that your intention?
Yes, that is a
That
good question. It's not that it's not healing anything, but it does actually, sort of get you a step closer. It gets you away from all the distraction that is being played out. I want to show, there's a video on YouTube called How to Spot a Narcissist. We've gone through this last time. I'll display this here for you: 10 narcissistic traits and behaviors, generalized obvious signs and red flags when you can observe exaggerated or extremely selfish and egotistical behaviors in conjunction with lack of empathy. Serving, the views and values, and often, self-serving views and values, and often incomprehensible lack of sympathy for other person's feelings. Okay, and then sense of entitlement and specialness, grandiosity, fantastical thinking, superficiality. So asking people, asking the person about their feelings, is something a narcissist really doesn't like. Okay, they really don't like this because guess what? They cannot feel them. So underneath narcissism, the full-blown clinical narcissism is actually an emptiness there where empathy should be. Okay, poor ability to regulate emotions, poor listening skills, hypersensitive to criticism, seeking admiration, arrogant and dismissive gestures, dishonest and manipulative and emotionally and energetically projecting. A lot of people do this. They're not all narcissists, but if these things, if you find these things in your partner, and we're going to go here through some of the manipulation tactics in a minute, then yeah, there is not much that you can do to change the other person, as there never is. We all know this. But there are some things that you can do to change yourself. We covered this in the last webinar, part 1, guys. I cannot go through this. We don't have the time. The common abuse tactics. But what I want to cover with you here, also the early signs. Okay, we covered this. This is where we left off last time. And we got to, the signs that you are in a fantasy bond, that you're in a toxic relationship. So what are the things that you can observe? Let me display this here in a little larger. We've gone through this last time, so listen to the part 1, but I want to, list this here. Do I feel safe enough to be and express myself? Can I maintain my own timing and my own space? Is this really about me? Is there significance to me in this relationship? Am I often confused or question whether it's love? Are my concerns being taken seriously? Is this relationship exhausting to me? Is there a lot of projection? Is there idealization? Is there energetic control or energetic infringement? Is your partner really interested in you, your opinions, your friends, your family? Is there emotional, verbal, energetic abuse? Okay, those are red flags. Okay, this just needs to be covered here. So we got through the energetics of empaths and narcissists, and both basically being energetically sensitive, but with a different objective. And here we now get into the part that I wanted to cover today. Now there is a few more comments here and a few more questions. Yes, and I agree. It seems having script of values helps. Yes, and that's why we do these workshops. So, and me creating these infographics for you, you know, I recognize that, how important that is to have this list of things. I'll continue doing that for you. Somebody else shares, for me, I never was able to have a voice different than my father's, an identity separate from him. Yes. So you weren't actually you weren't allowed to have your own identity. That's what I hear you saying. Because all of us children were direct reflections to others of him. And if we weren't perfect, then that meant he wasn't perfect. Wonderfully said. It's a huge insight that you have. So especially when it comes to parents, because that's what you're up against. You're not going to change them because they see you as an extension of them. They don't want you to have your own identity because you don't have one. Yeah, they're entitled to your sense of self because you're their children. They own you. Okay, so that's how a narcissistic parent sees that, and we're going to talk more in part 3 about this particular issue. But coming back to the deeper stuff here, because we're running out of time, and I want to heed your time and respect it. So, what is the problem, with this narcissism and empath attraction? Both are trying to heal or to get healing from the other, and that's the fatal part of that. Okay, both are basically caught. Both are basically caught in their false self, guys. We both are. That's the problem. The only difference is, as we know, the empathy, so the ability to actually feel what it feels like for the other, and with it, of course, the cruelty that comes with that, because if you don't know what that does to the other, you just, that never even crosses your mind. And then on the other end, you have the empath, who does some fatal mistakes along the way. First of all, believes that your partner is a mind reader, okay, and like Gorsha, you said this wonderfully, assuming that the other person would know what it makes you feel like. No, that's a big mistake. They don't. Okay. So you got to speak up. If you don't speak up, they're never going to learn. Okay. But then, it also shows whether they're actually interested in what it makes you feel or not. And this is where you can spot the true narcissist, because the true narcissist really isn't interested in what it makes you feel like. The traumatized person, the addict, or whatever that uses narcissistic behavior to get by, will feel that, and it will make them consider differently. They will make an effort to change because they don't want you to feel that way. They can feel that pain themselves. But both have a massive issue, and that is that their energy body is completely fragmented because they're not in their true self. So here, just what it looks like if a person is sort of in a healed, balanced place, then ego and true self and shadow, they all going together. It's like they exist, they coexist, but they're going together. They're harmonized, and you have a rather good shield. It's all glued together. But when you're traumatized and when you have all these fragments, you disconnect it from your higher vibratory understanding and from your higher vibratory goals. Whatever the reason, is irrelevant. The problem is the same. And this is what makes us so susceptible to all these manipulation tactics. So these are, spelled out the energetic effects on our energy body of trauma, of being with the narcissist. We went through this last time. So now we get into the prevention, and we talked about the boundaries, how to do the boundary work. There's a whole recording on boundary work for you accessible as well. Go to the form. You find all these stairs, 23 signs of unhealthy boundaries, telling all, taking, rushing into intimacy, falling in love immediately, falling in love with anyone who reaches out to you, being overwhelmed by a person or preoccupied, acting on first sexual impulses, going against your personal values or rights to please the other, not noticing when someone else displays inappropriate boundaries or, says no, that one too, not noticing when someone invades your boundaries, accepting food, gifts, touch, sex that you don't even want, touching a person without asking, taking as much as you can get, for the sake of giving as much as you can give for the sake of giving. Here we have, the narcissist and the codependent sort of extremes that are both unhealthy boundaries. Allowing someone to take as much as they can from you, it's an unhealthy boundary. Letting others direct your life, letting others describe your reality, letting others define you, believing others can anticipate your needs, expecting others to fill your needs automatically, falling apart, so someone will take care of you, self-abuse, sexual and physical abuse, food abuse. Guys, those are all things that we have to reclaim, okay? So the bottom line from boundary work is, I'm not telling you what to do, but you can't do this, or you don't get to do this, or you don't get to act this way, or say this to me, with me, or in my space. Period. What is now the healing approach and the prevention? And this is the core slide here for you guys. Understanding the narcissistic objective. What is the objective? And no, narcissists cannot heal. They cannot heal. Because that empathy piece isn't there, and that is needed to heal. Okay. It is, however, possible to teach a narcissist cognitive empathy, and that is that they can at least imagine what it could do to another person and then change their behavior. The behavior modification works with the narcissist. They can adapt, but they cannot actually heal, at least not the narcissism part. Now, they can heal trauma, and sometimes, actually every person who starts active trauma healing, requires less coping, so it heals addictions, it heals shadow, it heals narcissistic traits. Okay, but a full-blown narcissist that is coming from clinical research cannot be healed, and that is part of the problem that we are having as empaths with the narcissist, because we want to believe in the good of everybody and that everybody can heal. But the reason why research is so clear on this is because the full-blown narcissist is not interested in healing. Full-blown narcissist doesn't want it any different. You've got to understand that. That is a whole different ballgame. Your good doer and rescuer, healer mindset is completely neutralized with a narcissist, because they honestly don't care. Okay. All right, understanding the narcissistic objective. Fulfilling the narcissistic needs. Number one. And that is also called seeking narcissistic supply. Who is the narcissistic supply? You are. Everyone who's willing to give them something. What are they seeking? Well, let's go back to this here real quick. Just a sec. What are they seeking? All of these. Sense of entitlement and specialness, grandiosity, fantastical thinking, superficiality. This is what they want. Okay, you have to read the things and go back to the other recording. Okay, so narcissistic supply, and they want it from you. Okay, so that is something that every narcissist will willingly admit. And not only that they want it for you, also that they are entitled to it, that it's their right. They want to establish themselves, in order to do that with you or to you, they want to establish themselves as somebody who is interested in you. That is something that gets you to go the extra mile. They want you to trust them. And they want to collect data, which they will use against you later. They will also, with everything they do, cover their own tracks. Not because they think there's anything wrong with it, but of course they don't want you to find out about it, right? Because who likes this parasitic type of relationship? Nobody does. So they have to blindside you, they have to distract you, they have to keep you in this constant state of gaslighting and crazy making. Because, I mean, if you come to your clear senses, you can see what's going on, right? So the objective of the narcissist is to keep you so busy with doing all these things, to you that you don't even have a moment to take a breath and to ask yourself those things. It's all about maintaining control over you, because you are the narcissistic supply. You are their drug, host, if you will. They want to establish and reinforce their own their own reality, their needs, and their entitlement. And the way they do this is by devaluating your reality, your feelings, and your needs. Examples for that: you say something, this makes me feel so and so. Did you want me to feel this way? I mean, you can even go that far, right? And they'll say, oh, you're just making all that up. Oh, I was just kidding. Oh, I'm just teasing you. Oh, don't you think you're overreacting? Don't you think that's a little, extreme, the need that you have? Can't you do it without any? What about this? If you're taking a nap now, then, the kids are not being taken care of. That makes you look like a bad mom. I mean, like, I'm not making these things up. I've heard all these things. Okay. All right. So the further objective of that is to keep you in self-doubt and low self-esteem, because for as long as I can just let me just pretend I'm the narcissist here. For as long as I can distract you, with getting you into this place where you constantly question yourself, where you constantly get distracted by what I throw at you. Okay, you in this constant state of cognitive dissonances. Gosha, what you described to us so beautifully earlier was a state of cognitive dissonance. The simple need that you're a little tired and all you want is a 20-minute nap has thrown you in a loop of cognitive dissonances that took I don't know how long. Okay. It's completely ineffective, but it takes you out. It defeats you, making you dependent, externalizing all your powers to me. I want you to see me as the one that has all the answers, that has all the resolutions, that can fix you, that can tell you what to do. So, you doing a good job. I'm also the one that, of course, feeds you with the praise accordingly, that conditions you, okay, so that you feel like you're doing the right thing, that you get the approval that you need. Because, I've already put you into that place that you're doubting yourself. So if I'm, making sure that you externalize, or if I want to make sure that you externalize your powers to me, I have to feed you a little bit. I have to give you a good feeling about yourself. So usually the way this happens is by sort of hyper praising you, this like idealization, making you like, oh my God, you just like God sent you, like this, we're meant to be together. I never felt like this, that I feel, how I feel with you before. But this is like, you're my twin soul, this is made, God wants us to be together, something along those lines. And then 5 minutes later, oh my God, you're the worst person, look at you, how bad you are. If others only knew how bad you were, they wouldn't even look at you. And yet here I am. I'm idolizing you. So the way that's been done is by keeping you in this addictive cycle. And that's called hurt and rescue. Okay, first I hurt you, then I rescue you. Or silent treatment. Always keeping you on a short leash. The moment you act a little bit off from what I want, I give you a little passive aggressive frown, or I don't talk to you, or I ignore you, or I withdraw. Love bombing and then discarding. That's what I just so vividly described. Literally doing everything that you love, all in one It's like you can't even believe it, that something like this is real. And then the next moment, telling you how disgusting you are. Love bombing and discarding. Push-pull. Establishing their inflated sense of self. And how do I do that? How do I establish my inflated sense of self? By hyper-criticizing you. And especially criticizing your being. See, one of the things that narcissists do is they will not say the way you acted. They know, or I mean, they will say that too, but they will immediately go into you as a person. What a terrible person you are. How fat you are, how disgusting you are, how, I can't even come up with things right now. So they will criticize your being. This is the first chakra part. This is the root part. This is why so many of you have a critical inner voice that actually tells you that you're bad. Who of you has a critical inner voice that tells you that you're bad? Yeah. Oh my God, that's almost everybody. Okay. Yes. You've been criticized in your being, guys. That's why as a parent, you always want to make sure that you differentiate here. And when you have something to criticize with your children, or you have to discipline them or reprimand them, always refer to their behavior, not to their being. Okay. That makes a big difference in how somebody grows up. Instilling fear. Having these outbursts of, inappropriate outbursts of intense emotions, turning into a rage beast. Or the more passive aggressive version of that, making you walk on eggshells. All that just to kill your self-worth. Because see, if you get to this place where you are becoming to be unhappy with this and discontent, and you, like you've said, Cheryl, well, it's not always safe to say these things, and you basically give up pointing out truths or questioning things because you don't want to go through all the rage and all the that's when your self-worth is in danger, because now you're basically communicating to yourself, I'm not worth it. It's not worth it. I don't want to go through all this rah with him, but and this is also then where the incongruence starts, and where you stop sharing things, and where you stop actually being honest with yourself and your own true feelings. This is when you start performing, because you just don't want to stir up anything. Okay. How else do I do this? I sabotage you behind your back. I influence others around you. This is where the enmeshment can be observed. I create an audience. I create an audience that idolizes me and slowly degrade you in front of that audience. So you can see this very often when they, suddenly become best friends of your parents. And then your parents are starting to spill all the stuff about you, and then that's it, where I've experienced this so many times. It's like you're say you're married, or you have a spouse who is kind of narcissistic in nature, but they never get along with your mother or your father. But the moment you want to get divorced or you have a fight, they're suddenly best friends. This all happened behind your back. They suddenly, sort of unite against you. Okay, even your best friends. Those are called flying monkeys. So narcissists are very, very talented at creating a fellowship, creating flying monkeys for later. Also, the way I do this is I narrow your options. At least I make you believe that you have no options. Not only do I like using your flaws against you, I double bind you with it. I say, if anybody ever finds out how you talk to your children, or you want to be this spiritual person, and here you are, doing this and this and this, those are double binds, guys. They put you into a place. It's like It's like this has to do with the collecting data. It's something you can see in politics very beautifully, where somebody tempts you into, or not you, other people, other people in power into inappropriate situations, all this like child abuse and sex stuff, these sex things that are going on, and then later blackmails you with it. Okay, that's how narcissists do that with you. Also, I want to be in control over the choices that you make. Okay, and I want to narrow down your choices. I want to create an insane book of rules and obligations for you. Okay, so that you are just like running around like a chicken with a head cut off, trying to please, that trying to perform. I make you perform for me. All of you with this sort of insane performance code, guys, you've been primed, you've been conditioned to that, just so you know. Okay, I give you all these things that you need to do in order to feel you have the right to be here. And of course, it's all based on double standards. I don't have to do these things, only you do. I keep you distracted with these mind games at all times. I never give you any time to breathe. I keep you in this constant battling. And guess what? You cannot win that one because I have way more practice on that than you do. And you, with your good doer attitude, you won't go into the battling in order to kill me. You just fighting for your own survival. But I go in there to make you believe you are not worth it to live. Okay, and that's why I win. Again, here, me right now, just taking on that persona for you. Sending you down argumentative rabbit holes, making you doubt and defend yourself at all times. Sidetracks, side battles, semantics, constantly. It's a constant fight. Constantly making you feel like you have to defend yourself, you have to justify your mere existence. Okay? That's how I keep you low. And last but not least, I play the victim all the time. Because, you have this intention. You don't want me to be a victim, of course, because that would make you feel like a perpetrator, right? I know that about you. So I make sure that I constantly establish how good my intentions are. All I want to do is to love you. All I want to do is to, make you a better person. All I want to do is to help you. But I don't want to be accountable for anything that goes wrong. If there was a mistake in, what I told you to do and you did it, I will deny I ever said it. I will completely shift the blame to you and make me look like the victim. I will accuse you of all these things above, and I will also accuse you of being the narcissist. Yes, correct. This is absolutely energetically draining. That's why you have zero chance with a narcissist. Okay, so somebody's asking, so can narcissists then heal as they grow closer to their true selves? Yes, they can. Everybody can. Everybody has a true self. But narcissists don't think there's anything wrong with doing this. Narcissists don't seek a coach or a therapist because they don't think there's anything wrong with what they're doing. They think the world is bad. They don't understand why the world isn't seeing their grandiosity. In fact, they're the ones that put out to the world how misunderstood they are, and that they are this undiscovered talent, and that one day everybody will regret that they're not seeing the goodness in you and me, and that they're all wrong. Narcissists don't think they have to heal anything. which is why their chances of healing are so minimal, because they're not seeking help. Okay. Hope that answers that question. Okay, but what is your antidote, and how can you prevent this, and how can you live better deal with this? Okay, your 10 antidotes, and you will recognize them. Those are all the things that we're working on here in the Sacred Self-Healing course. Free will, to recognize that you actually have a free will. You could walk out any moment, right? No, you won't. But you do have a free will, and you have the right to have your own opinion, and you have the right to have your own goals, and you have the right to think your own way. Narcissists hate that when you tell them that you have a free will. And they'll anticipate it. They will say things such as, well, you have the right to think whatever you want, but, and then they'll annihilate whatever it is that you think. So you just don't have to get sidetracked there, and remind yourself that you still have free will. You still have the right to have your own opinion, right? Number 2, you have the right to choose your own solutions. See, the narcissist thinks of himself that he or she is the only one who has it figured out. So they laugh about you having solutions, and they minimize them, and they degrade them. That's what makes you question your own reality and yourself. But if you just remind yourself that you still have the right to choose your own, your own way, you still can do it how you want it. Knowing who you are, never giving up that power to determine who you truly are. You may get sidetracked with the narcissist because they're very talented, very enticing, and they use a lot of energetic projection. Almost impossible for an empath to withstand that. You have to be very experienced, and then you can spot it from a mile away. And you stay away from narcissists because there's no way to resolve this. Okay, eventually you just won't attract them into your life anymore. But you have to know who you are, guys. This is why I say the best etheric defense that you have, the best energetic defense that you have, the best defense period is to know yourself. Your alignment to truth, that's a big one. Because the narcissist does everything, all these things that we just illuminated here, they're all there to keep you out of truth. Okay? So your alignment to truth, and you're listening to your inner promptings and red flags and inner hunches and gut feeling, is your antidote. And we've talked about this in all the steps here, what is needed to do this, to shift your energy out of it. You have to, go into your own space. You have to know how to get into your own heart, how to center yourself, how to claim that space. You not judging is an antidote. Why? Because the narcissist uses your own self-judgments against you. If you don't judge yourself, they can't use it anymore. Do you understand? They use your own critical inner voice against you. Another good reason to change the recording and to combat your critical inner voice. The way you combat your critical inner voice is also ultimately how you combat the narcissist. Number 6, your antidote is to know how you truly feel, to know your feelings. You know how you feel, and you have the right to feel. Remember, your feelings can't be wrong. Now, that your interpretation of your feelings and sort of your emotional reaction can be, inappropriate or whatever, but your feeling is never wrong. That's why I teach you guys to speak from the heart and start a sentence with the way this feels to me. That bothers a narcissist. Usually they'll immediately answer that with, oh, your feelings. I've actually had my ex-husband narcissist. I caught him in that. He actually tried to degrade me by saying, oh, you've always listened to your inner feelings. You always, and he tried to degrade it by saying this, and he couldn't help but notice what he is saying. He was actually reconfirming exactly what I was doing. And I just cracked up laughing. I just cracked up laughing. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. I always trust my feelings. That's right. Yeah, you're a typical woman. Okay, here, this is when you hear this, guys, remember, you already know the difference between feelings and emotions. Oh, feelings not the same as emotions. I'm not talking about emotions. Emotions, remember the scale? They're all ego. I'm not talking about your emotions. I'm talking about your feelings. Okay. We're gonna, how do you stand boundaries with a narcissistic neighbor? You may have to answer that next time. Okay. Knowing your needs. Well, Gosha gave us a beautiful example for that. You got to know what your needs are. You got to be able to identify them, and you got to acknowledge them, and then you're going to have to take the right to do them. And guess what? This is how you can take a narcissist out. You can say, but I need this right now. There's nothing they can do against this. All they can trumpet with is to say, well, but I need this more. And then you can say, well, I understand that you need this more right now, or, I hear you, but for me, that is not my need right now. It's just not. You got to have that willingness to disagree. You got to have that willingness to stand for your own need. And that's really the answer to combat any kind of narcissism. Denise, it's with the neighbor or with a mother or father or child or spouse, the same thing. You also got to know your wants and your goals in life. Okay? Because they're going to twist it around. They're going to say, oh, you and your spiritual stuff, They're going to degrade all that you do. Who of you has experienced or is afraid of experiencing degradation through what you're doing here with us, with this spiritual work that you're doing, the self-healing work? Yep, 80% of you. Good sign that you've been traumatized by narcissistic behavior. Why in the world would you be afraid of getting degraded for working on self-healing? Think about that. Antidote number 9, being your true self. That is, of course, all this work, the foundation of all this work is to connect with your true self. And the narcissist works directly against it. Directly against it. Doesn't want you to connect with your true self. Doesn't want you to connect with truth. Truth works against them. So, of course, they'll degrade all this work to self. They'll pretend they'll be interested. My ex-husband came to all kinds of true self and retreats and trips and ceremonies and plant medicines. You think he was really interested in that? No, he just wanted to control me. He wanted to know what I know. He wanted to know what I'm. Did he ever share anything that he experienced over? No, never. He didn't experience anything because he slept through it the entire time. He just wanted to be there. And number 10, your antidote, number 10, is letting others be. Let the narcissist be. Let go of trying to fix everybody, of trying to heal everybody. Let go of trying to rescue them or whatever, pleasing them or whatever it is that you think you need to do. Just let everybody be and be, in your own center and neutral at that. And here, just to leave you off with with a direct sort of sentence that you can use is, I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm a free person and I choose to, whatever it is. Yes, Heather, that's exactly what you're saying. You have to, and this is a sentence that if you have a hard time saying that, you got to practice that. Record that on your phone and play it back to you. Because that's, you've got to remind yourself. You forget that because the narcissist will entangle you so much in all these sidelines and word salad and blame shifting and whatnot, that you are forgetting yourself to ask yourself that, and to forgetting that you are a free person. Don't be afraid to disagree. Just say, oh, okay, I hear what you're saying, but yeah, I feel differently about this, or I have a different opinion. And if you a bit more combative, you can even say, oh, because one of the things that the narcissist hates more than anything else is if they get exposed as narcissist. Okay, the degradation and the negativity and this like really sort of mean attitude that they have sometimes. If you expose them at that and say, oh, that wasn't nice to say. I choose to say, more positive things. I choose to see this in a more positive light. Okay, whatever the judgment was. And another thing, in regards to other people, guys, I mean, we have to practice that a little bit. Is that you cannot ever tell other people that you're with a narcissist. I mean, especially your family members, or especially when you're like in the process of getting divorced or going away, because chances are that they have been manipulated already. And so it's much smarter to use the exact same methodology that they do, and that is only saying positive things about them. And I was like, yeah, they're really trying, they're really doing good. I just wish they could, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so those are all verbal manipulation tactics that you can use to reestablish sort of a, ability to deal with other people. Because the one thing that the narcissist does is they destroy your environment, your friends, and the people around you, and they isolate you. They disconnect you from your support system. And in the process of regaining sort of, we're not yet talking about actually leaving and recovering. That will be part 4. The narcissist, and what you have to deal with, and the phases that you will most likely go through. But to reestablish your own support system, never say anything like that they are narcissistic or anything, because there is a really, really high chance that they will already have seeded a lot of doubt about your ability to judge that. We're at a place here where we have to wrap this up. Yes, we went 15 minutes over, so I still want to respect your time, though. There's 3 key elements that you're gonna have to remember, that when you are trying to deal with narcissistic abuse in your actual living situation, okay, be it your neighbor, your mother, blah, 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 and you can't change it, okay? Number 1 is all these, spotting these kind of manipulation tactics that just help you to, this education, they just help you to put words to it, to put labels to it. It's easier for you to identify it. Okay. The antidotes that I listed here for you, those are things that remind you that you are kept in an illusion. And that illusion makes you feel like you don't have any other choices. So you need, constant reminders that you do have choices. And sometimes it's really just somebody else who can help you with that, third person, a coach, a therapist, a support group. Okay. The key things here for you to work on is self-responsibility, because part of what you've been unconditioned to do is to take responsibility for your own choices. Okay, so you've willingly, maneuvered yourself into that place where you could be dominated. Okay, so this has to do, you know, this healing process here has to do with the regaining self-responsibility. You also got to have courage, because you got to have that willingness to break through these initial resistance. Okay, yes, you know that they're gonna turn into a rage beast. You got to just be willing to stand there and watch this, you know, without going into anxiety, whether it's with your critical inner voice or in person. And you got to be willing to live with the consequences. You got to really just still connected to self-responsibility, but you are a grown up. You can make your own choices. You can live with these consequences of whatever it is that you're deciding. That brings back self-worth, that brings back self-esteem, that brings back congruence. Okay. And one more word before I let you go. If you find yourself in a relationship, be it in a romantic relationship or a spouse or parental relationship with a narcissist, and you can't change this, okay, you've got to get to that place where you realize that this person is not going to change, and they will continue trying to do that. And the only way for you to get a grip on this is to remove yourself. Okay, now with parents, especially if there's grandchildren and so forth involved, you're going to have to develop a strategy here. Something that I've mentioned many times before, you know, find out how much of this you can take, you know, an hour, 2 hours, how close you can get to the narcissist before it actually starts draining you. You know ways to realign, to recenter your energy by going outside, you know, or something like that. Know how to claim your own reality by saying, well, this is the way it looks to me. I hear, you know, that it looks, you know, I see how you see it, but I disagree with that. And to just leave it at that, to really get past your obsessive need for harmony and agreeability. Okay, you will never agree with a narcissist, and you got to be willing to you know, to go into this place and to point out that this, you know, that the other person obviously has a free will as well. They can think whatever they want to, but to not get entangled in these you know, these rabbit holes. Okay, where they do this on purpose, guys. So this is a tactic to confuse you and to entangle you into meaningless arguments. Okay, so that one you're gonna have to practice, and to stand in your center and to just look at it and say, oh, that's interesting, I've never looked at it this way. It's an interesting point of view you have there, but I see it differently. Okay. Another thing is to lower your expectations. If you want to live with a narcissist, if that's your choice, then just don't expect them to want to make you happy. The only reason that they have to keep you happy is to keep you as narcissistic supply. If that's okay with you, if you can reduce your expectations so low that you're just okay with living together with your spouse for money or for, you know, what neighbors think or whatever, fine. Don't expect that they're doing this out of love for you or that you could ask for anything in return. I mean, I'm just being pragmatic here by saying these things. So remove yourself or lower your expectations. Those are the two things that you can do. Those are your healing approaches. And next time we're going to talk about narcissistic parenting. And then in part 2, we're going to be talking about the recovery process, how to break out, how to, you know, how to get out of a narcissistic relationship. What if children are involved? What if court is involved? And what is the sort of the recovery process that you need to go through? Because that trauma that we've uncovered here today is still in you, even after you've left the narcissist. And in order to prevent this from happening again, and for you to reclaim your power and to not get into this kind of toxicity again, you're going to have to go through a recovery process, and you need patience with yourself. But the self-healing course here gives you the recipe, really. You know, all these aspects covered here, you know, are all leading to and leading you through this healing process. Okay, we don't have time for sharing anymore. Just, you know, does anybody have a question, a burning question?
I just want to say thank you.
Aw, thank you. Yes, and there's a lot of thank yous here in the chat. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Jona, and everyone. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you guys for sharing. Please, if you have a question, use the question button. The next, the part 3, where we talk about narcissistic parents and parenting, is I think on the 21st, same time, Sunday. And then the part 4, where we talk about the recovery process and how to get out of narcissistic relationships and so forth, I think is 2 weeks after that. So the early May. Okay. Thank you, guys. Love you. It's been fun going through this with you. Please send in your questions to that list that comes with the invitation.